You are listening to Crime Unraveled, a Buck Taylor novel by Chuck Morgan.
Chapter 26. Dutch parked his SUV next to an old rusty mine car lying on its side in the dirt. A relic from a time long ago when hardy men using picks and shovels dug for coal and shiny minerals in dirty, dark and dangerous mines. Personal protection had no place in the old mines, and safety was a concept that would take years to take hold, if it ever really did. The miners' lives were less important than the shiny baubles they brought forth. This mine was no exception. The old cracked timbers that supported the mountain above the mine were often no match for the weight of the mountain. Over the years, too many men had lost their lives in this mine and others in the area, but the rest of the men still showed up for work every day. They were hard men who worked hard, drank hard and lived in the moment, and some paid the ultimate price. The last cave-in at this mine had been the death knell. 27 men were crushed under the weight of the mountain, and the mine was shuttered, abandoned to the elements, which, from the looks of it, had reclaimed a lot of it. Dutch wondered why Ramon was thinking of reopening this mine. The mine was cursed and had been from the day the first shovel went into the ground. Since records were poorly kept in the early days, no one knew for certain how many men perished in this dark, forbidding place, but the ghosts would be inside waiting for the unsuspecting miners of today. Sure, Ramon could bring in the experts and make it safer, but there would always be the stories, and the first incident would revive the tales about ghosts and demons from deep in the ground protecting what was theirs. Dutch shivered and slid out of the SUV. Sometimes he made himself nervous. He shook off the bad vibes, made sure his gun was nestled in his holster and walked towards the entrance. He shined his light into the vast cavity, the light disappearing in the darkness. This was a fool's errand, he thought, as he stepped closer to the opening. The rusted iron gate that was supposed to block the entrance after the mine was closed had been torn open by vandals or demons who knew. He put on the hard hat he had grabbed from the passenger seat and stepped past the broken gate. He was about to enter the lair of the beast. He stopped at the entrance to listen, but all he heard was the eerie whistle of the wind blowing through the tunnels. The wind was foul-smelling, like it was coming straight out of the vile mouth of a demon. "Fuck, Dutch. Get a grip," he said to no one. "You're freaking yourself out." Touching the pistol on his hip, he ventured farther into the mine. He wanted an opportunity to scope it out before putting Ramon in danger. 20 feet into the mine, he spotted the first signs of human habitation. A torn blanket lay balled up and stuffed in a crevice, and there were the remains of a small campfire, cold to the touch, with burned pieces of food wrappers. Dutch didn't see any evidence of anyone having been in the mine in a while. He turned towards the entrance when he heard car tires crunching on the gravel. He heard a door close, and a light appeared at the entrance. "Dutch, you in there?" "About 20 feet in, Ramon." Ramon entered the tunnel and stopped as dirt sprinkled down from the roof. He heard timbers cracking and wondered if this was a good idea, but he knew what had to be done. He stepped up to Dutch and looked at where he was pointing. "That looks like it's been here a while," said Ramon. "See anyone around?" "No," said Dutch. "This is as far as I got. Want to go in farther?" "No, but I wanted to talk to you," said Ramon. "The cops are all over the murders of Woodman and Betty Mortensen. They have a couple of eyewitnesses that saw you at the scene. Worse than that, those 2 idiots from the demo company got into it with the cops this morning, and one is dead and the other is in custody." Dutch had a funny feeling in the pit of his stomach. The incarceration of one of the blasters was a problem, but he sensed something in Ramon he had never sensed before, and he didn't like what he was feeling or thinking. He stepped deeper into the tunnel. "How did they get onto Rodney and Boomer?" he asked. "Their truck was spotted at the Mortensen home, and then spotted this morning in Glenwood. One of them threatened to blow up the cops, and the cops found dynamite in the truck. If the guy in jail talks, we are all sunk. They know everything." "How did they find Woodman so quickly?" "He was down in a crevice," asked Dutch. "I don't know, but we are not happy about it. They work for us. This is going to land right on our doorstep." "What do you want me to do?" asked Dutch. He raised his flashlight and the beam fell on Ramon, who had backed up a couple of paces and was now holding a pistol in his right hand. The pistol was pointed at Dutch. "Come on, Ramon. You can't be serious. We've been friends a long time. Put that thing away, and let's figure a way out of this." "Sorry, Dutch. Take your pistol out of your holster and throw it towards the wall." "Ramon, this isn't you. This is your sister. She's pulling your strings again. Come on, man. Don't bring my sister into this. Now gun. On the ground." Dutch pulled his pistol from his holster and threw it towards the wall. As he did it, Ramon made the biggest mistake of his life. He followed the pistol with his eyes. Only for a split second, but it was enough. Dutch pulled his knife from the sheath at his back and threw it with point-blank accuracy. The knife hit Ramon in the chest, and Ramon pulled the trigger. The bullet hit Dutch in the side, and he flipped the switch on his flashlight and disappeared into the dark. Ramon dropped the pistol, reached up with his right hand and touched the knife. Blood was streaming down his shirt and pooling on the floor around his feet. He stared in disbelief, and then he dropped to his knees in the blood puddle that was already being sucked into the earth. Dust and dirt were falling from the ceiling, and timbers continued to crack. Dutch watched from the dark as Ramon fell over onto the dirt. He heard the cave moan, and he wondered if his friend's blood was now feeding the demons. He felt his side, and his hand came away wet. He found his pistol on the dusty floor and returned it to his holster. He picked up his flashlight and walked up to Ramon, who was lying motionless on the dirty floor. He wiped a tear from his eye, pulled the knife from Ramon's chest and stepped towards the entrance. The bullet slammed into his right thigh, and he fell to the ground. He reached for his pistol. "Don't," said the shadow standing at the entrance. More dirt and dust fell from the tunnel roof. Gabriella walked a few feet into the tunnel. She had grown up in mines and was not bothered by the dirt and creaking timbers, but she knew Dutch hated being underground. He always had. That's why this was such a fitting end. "Did you kill him?" she asked. She spotted the knife in his hand, still dripping with her brother's blood. "Drop the knife." Dutch let the knife fall from his hand. He was having trouble focusing, and knew he was losing a lot of blood. He had to do something quickly, or he was going to die in this tunnel. "He tried to kill me. I had no choice." His right hand grabbed the gun at his belt, but Gabriella wasn't fooled as her late brother had been. She fired twice, both bullets finding their mark, and she watched as Dutch slumped backward onto the ground. She walked over, looked into his eyes, and fired the next shot into his head. She walked down the tunnel to check on Ramon, found no pulse, and returned to the entrance. Once outside, she picked up the block of plastic explosives she had gotten from Roger Burns, set it down inside the entrance, and set the timer. She set it for 10 minutes, and walked over to the two SUVs sitting next to each other. She placed a block of plastic explosives inside each vehicle, and checked her watch. She set the timers, and headed down the hill to where she had hidden her car behind a rock outcropping. She sat in her SUV and waited, keeping an eye on her watch. Her timing was off. The tunnel entrance blew 15 seconds before the SUVs. She could hear the tunnel collapsing, and she saw the thick black smoke from the SUVs as the fire turned what was left of them into cinders. She smiled, put the Escalade in gear and headed back down the mountain. She had work to do now that she owned the entire company.
Thank you for listening to this chapter of Crime Unraveled, a Buck Taylor novel by Chuck Morgan. You can find the entire crime series as well as other novels by Chuck Morgan at chuckmorganbooks.com or on Amazon.